Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Wednesday, May 22nd. Today is day 229. I love the way the translation from the scriptures in the Message that was translated by Eugene Peterson. I love the way it translates Galatians chapter 6, verses, I think it's 6 to 9, or verses 9 and 10. Talks about not giving up, doing good. This is what the passage says. So let's not allow ourselves to be fatigued doing good. At the right time, we will harvest a good crop if we do not give up or quit. Right now, therefore, every time we get the chance, let us work for the benefit of all, starting with the people closest to us in the community of faith. And so I hope that's an encouragement to you today. Every time we get the chance, let's work for the benefit of all. News from Gaza. One of the greatest challenges in Gaza right now is the lack of access. A lot of the information I'm going to share today is directly from some humanitarian agencies on the ground. Not only the limitation of access of aid, but workers. The number now of people who've been displaced from Rafah is 812,000 people. And just as a reminder, Palestinians who were displaced in 1948, that was the greatest catastrophe of the Palestinian people, and it was about 750,000. And those just displaced in the last 2 weeks is 812,000. It's roughly the same number. And this is the second or third displacement in 7 months. 1.7, 1.8 million people displaced in those first few weeks after October 7th. And imagine having lived 200 plus days under bombing with that slight reprieve when there was that temporary ceasefire in the fall. Imagine losing your home with all your possessions. I just heard a story of one family from the north who left, and every family member just had 2 pairs of underwear and no other clothes, nothing else. They lost their home. They lost all their memories. They were displaced to central Gaza, then to South Gaza, and then they just have been displaced again from Rafah. Displacement is a war crime, make no mistake about it. And in the news, we often hear the story told that Israel's doing a favor by keeping people safe and moving them. But actually, like the displacement of people that results in death, this type of displacement, that's the fundamental principle of ethnic cleansing. And so this is not a kindness. Yes, we're grateful that they're being moved and not bombed. Okay, but if the choice is to be displaced, is it better than death? Okay, yes, but to say ethnic cleansing is better than genocide, who should have to make such a choice? Some of the things that we need to be paying the most attention to in terms of what's happening in Gaza, I don't know if you've heard this word, it's deconfliction. I had to look it up. Even when I looked it up, I was like, what is that? The White House kept saying, you care about deconfliction. They started saying this in the fall. And I was like, we do? That word historically comes from military terminology. It's been extended to the humanitarian perspective. It involves the notification of humanitarian locations, activities, movements, and personnel in both static and non-static locations. So the military knows where these humanitarian groups are, the World Central Kitchen, for example, for the purpose of protection against attacks and the incidental effects of the attacks under international humanitarian law. When the church, St. Porphyrius, was bombed, those coordinates were known by the Israelis, for example. So we should be paying attention to the status of the hostages. We've been calling for them to be released since day one. It's believed there are far less than 100 even still left alive. And it seems that specific number may not even be known. We've already talked about the movement of people, and the entire population of Gaza. They're not just pieces on a chessboard and they can't be moved around at will. That's unacceptable. The conduct of the Israeli Defense Forces in Gaza, not only has the military been blamed for the failures of October 7th and what happened, or that this happened in the first place, but attacks of known targets. We just talked about confliction, but also that, there are attacks on civilian infrastructure, attacks that have involved, numerous civilians, attacks on facilities that are used for humanitarian reasons or medical facilities. Human Rights Watch did a report this year on some of the concerns about their behavior, and Hamas is equally guilty of, violations of war crimes. That's what we just heard from the ICC in the last couple of days. The protection of civilians is one of the most significant concerns in terms of what's coming out of Gaza. every day, more and more Palestinians in Gaza die, and that has to be a key priority, the protection of civilians. And then finally, what do humanitarian groups need to operate? They can't even get access to basic things that they need to function, solar panels, so that they can have equipment, like let alone gas or, other basic needs, specific things. And so these are some of the things that we were asked to raise in our advocacy and to call attention to. Other updates over the past 24 hours, several countries are seeking or starting to recognize the state of Palestine in addition to the 100 plus who've already done so. One of the goals is that the international community would help address the imbalance of power between the state of Israel, and the Palestinian Authority. So Norway, Ireland, and Spain announced, again, May 28th is the date that they would recognize the state of Palestine. President Abbas welcomed the recognition. The Norwegian Prime Minister said that there cannot be peace in the Middle East if there's no recognition. The Irish Prime Minister said that they intend also that recognition is important in the process of Israeli-Palestinian resolution and moving towards a two-state solution on 67 borders. Norway's decision was a reaction to the policies of the Netanyahu government. The foreign minister told Haaretz, saying that it's clear that the government has no intention to negotiate with the Palestinian side and has been so accepting and even supportive of illegal settlements. Hamas said that this is an important step on the road to the base of the right of the Palestinian people over its land, including the establishment of an independent state with Jerusalem as its capital. Historically, it's been the idea that East Jerusalem would be the capital of the Palestinian state. The foreign minister of Israel, Katz, recalled Israel's ambassadors from Norway, Ireland, and Spain for consultation and summoned their envoys to Israel for reprimand, during which he said they will be shown a video of the October 7th kidnapping of female military spotters. Saudi Arabia's foreign ministry said that they support recognition and called on other countries to follow suit and to guarantee a just and broad peace in the Middle East. Now, this is big news in terms of the hostage and ceasefire negotiations. Egypt, it's been reported, has secretly altered the terms of the ceasefire and hostage deal. When they gave Hamas's response back to Israel and the US, it's reported that, this is CNN saying that Egypt altered the deal and that was what led to the collapse of negotiations. So I haven't heard that from other news sources yet, but that was just reported today. The families of 5 women military spotters kidnapped by Hamas released footage of their abduction to the public, the Hostage Families Forum said. Netanyahu told Jake Tapper on CNN that Israel has no intention of resettling Gaza after the war. He said that he has a very clear plan to get rid of Hamas. Rafah's the last stronghold. The US and many others think that that is an unrealistic goal. Far-right Minister Smotrich said that Netanyahu should take steps against the PA until further notice. He will not transfer tax funds collected by Israel for the Palestinian Authority. He said he would cancel the arrangement that gives Norway responsibility for transferring the tax funds because of the recognition of a Palestinian state. We talked about this a lot in meetings we've had this week. There's about 500 million, shekels of tax money currently being held in Norway. My understanding is some of that is reserved for PA officials that are in Gaza. I don't know if Smotrich has the authority to do this, but that was significant news. In the first visit to the Temple Mount Al-Aqsa compound since October 7th, Ben-Gvir said Israel must stop fuel supplies to Gaza and secure the release of hostages. He said that recognizing a Palestinian state means Hamas is being rewarded. Ron Dermer, who was formerly the U.S. ambassador to Israel, he's now the Israeli Strategic Affairs Minister. I thought that was very interesting. He believes there will be normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia within the coming year. Also, 3 Israeli soldiers were killed in Gaza and 3 militants, a Hamas commander, another Hamas member, and member of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad were all killed in Gaza in the past day. The UN has planned new routes with Gaza to transport aid from the U.S. floating pier because Palestinians intercepted 11 trucks, which stopped deliveries from the pier. This pier has had a lot of problems. I saw a map today and didn't understand. The pier was built right off central Gaza, which is near the Netzarim corridor. It is nowhere near the main population centers where people are located. So getting humanitarian aid from the pier to population centers is causing a lot of trouble. The U.S. intelligence said 30 to 35% of Hamas fighters have been killed in the war. About 65% of tunnels are still intact. And the National Security Advisor in Israel, Hanegbi, said that Israel is not interested in controlling civilian life in Gaza, and they're examining alternative solutions, including local ones. He said this will not be relevant until Hamas is defeated. Again, that may not be possible. That's my commentary. He said Israel's examining the possibility of distributing aid in Gaza through private companies. This is a major problem. In other words, companies are starting to make money off of what is happening in Gaza. I heard that humanitarian trucks are being privileged if they're bringing in Coke, if they're bringing in, not Coke, sorry, I don't know if it's Coke specifically, but Coke, candy bars and sodas. They're being given privileges. Companies are being given privileges rather than humanitarian aid. Privatization of aid is a very concerning step. An Israeli Defense Forces vehicle drove over an explosive device in the West Bank city of Jenin, which detonated and severely wounded a Palestinian detainee who was in the vehicle. And the Israeli Defense Forces said that they attacked Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon, and there were rocket and aerial infiltration sirens in North Israel throughout the day today. Today is Wednesday. So hostilities have continued on that border. This is just a reminder, do not tire of doing good, do not quit, but work toward the end of all violence, especially those suffering in Gaza. Work for the peace and liberation of all.